piece that I see people get tripped up on is that they try to copy what the big celebrity names in the space are doing. They're trying to be like the Gary V's of the world. They're trying to be like Mel Robbins, and we'll get on calls and they'll say, I just see them flipping on the camera and they're so natural and it's great. And it's like, yes, you're right. And they can get away with that because they already have the audience. They already have the brand recognition. Every person is being served between 6,000 to 10,000 ads every day. 20 million new videos are being posted to the internet every day. And some days it's 20 million great videos, or it could be a lot of great videos. And some days they're not so great videos. There's also a little bit of a roulette game over what type of content and the quality of content that you're going up against each day. So we can't compare ourselves or try to mimic those that already have an existing audience, that already have fans, because they're going to get a lot more grace in how they set up content and what they do in comparison to you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flow Over Fear. I am so glad you're here today. Thank you for being here. Now, if my guest today had $1 for every view her videos have received, she would be a billionaire. Hilary Billings is the co-founder and CEO of Attentioneers, where she helps entrepreneurs and personal brands drive reach and revenue through short-form video strategy. Having grown her own following from 0 to 400,000 followers in 40 days and garnered over 1 billion organic views in under 12 months. I mean, that's 1/8 of the entire planet's population. Hilary understands the psychology of capturing and keeping attention online. Her agency not only works with intentionally recognized brands and celebrity influencers, but also collaborates directly with TikTok as members of their advisory board. Now, as certified personal brand strategist, Hilary's worked with a gamut of high-performing entrepreneurs, including billionaires, Victoria's Secret models, and New York Times best-selling authors. A former Miss Nevada journalist and an on-camera host, Hilary has also worked with traditional media outlets, including USA Today, E! News, and Extra. So she's here with me today to have a wide-ranging discussion about her expertise on personal branding, but also her own experiences and insights into how we approach adversity on the road to success. Hilary, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So first, the most important question that's on everybody's mind and on mine, of course, is it Nevada or Nevada? Settle this debate for me.
I am so glad you asked. The rest of the country, as far as we're concerned, has gotten it wrong. It is Nevada.
Okay.
Nevada.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Nevada, we're just not that bougie, unfortunately.
Good. Okay. So, well, I'm glad you said that. And I'm glad I chose to pronounce it that way in the bio, because I think I would have just been ostracized for the rest of the interview, I'm sure.
No, not at all. We just would know whether or not you're familiar with our great state, our silver state.
Well, I've listened to a number of podcasts that you've been on. We've been kind of connected through Brand Builders Group, which is great.
Yeah.
We've shared a stage together recently in North Carolina. So I had a little chance to get to know you, but I'm excited for this interview to get to know you a little bit more, and would love it if you I love the idea of the origin stories. So could you tell us a little bit about how you got started, where you came from, and what brought you to the world of short form video content?
All of it was an accident, I think I'd say it that way. I originally got my degree in psychology. I thought I wanted to be a professor. I graduated top of my class, and then I happened to graduate right after the 2008 recession, and I couldn't get into graduate school to save my life. I thought my life was over. I took off to Nicaragua and started a travel blog, just thinking I would document the downfall of my life. And then fast forward a couple years later, I was living nomadically around the world. I had readers in over 100 countries. I was still kind of kicking myself for not knowing at the time the power of an audience like that. And I was just so lamenting the fact that I didn't have a real job. But through that, learned the power of connecting with an audience online and digitally. And then that translated into me working for USA Today. And in between then, I had this incident where I was hit in the chest with a malfunctioning firework and suffered second and third degree burns to my body.
Wow.
And something that I talked a lot about in my travel blog was putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and finding a way to make them comfortable. Nothing sounded more uncomfortable than being on stage in a bikini and having someone judge me based upon my appearance. So I entered a beauty pageant, even though I had no interest whatsoever and had never thought that would be something I would do. Then I accidentally won and became Miss Nevada in 2013. It's my 10-year anniversary this year. Oh my gosh, I feel so old. But,
congratulations.
Thank you. Through that process, it provided such an opportunity to have a microphone and get to work with the Burn Foundation and being able to wear the sash and crown on the red carpets and starting to see how grabbing attention worked, even just with pattern interrupts like that. I worked for years as a journalist and on-camera host. And then right around the pandemic, obviously things changed. And me and my partner, he's a professional touring musician, Billboard charting artist, we both were really struggling to see what was going to be next in this weird and wacky world that we were all now living in. And I was approached by an acquaintance friend of mine who happened to run the largest creator network of creators for Facebook Watch. Collectively, his 200 something creators, plus I'm sure it's many more now, did over 60 billion views a year. And we thought, wow, this would be great. We'll make some videos. I already know how to make great video content through all my years of being an on-camera host. I know how to write great hooks from being a journalist. He knows how to make great music. We are clearly set up for success here. We'll just take all that knowledge and translate it into short videos. No problem. And then that didn't happen. And we spent 9 months banging our heads against a wall, trying to copy what we saw these other creators doing, and nothing was working for us. And it really starts to get to you, and it makes you feel like maybe you're the problem. Maybe no one wants to watch you. Maybe no one finds you interesting. Maybe you don't have the skill set. And we really had to have this come to Jesus moment of, what if everything that we thought was accidental in these videos, what if it was intentional? And maybe we should start looking at it as such. And maybe what we thought was really easy was actually engineered just to look easy, but actually was rather difficult to pull off time and time again. So we locked ourselves in a room and watched thousands of viral videos one day. I don't recommend anyone do it for their mental health, but we charted out what was happening at second 1, what was happening at second 3, what was happening at second 5, what were they wearing, what colors were involved, what were the mannerisms, what were the camera angles, what were the cuts, was there music, what was the descriptions, what were the hashtags. And through this process, it was almost like John Nash in A Beautiful Mind, and these patterns started to emerge. So we took our learnings from this. And by the way, this was all very platform agnostic. We were looking to apply it to Facebook Watch, but we realized that this could go anywhere. It didn't just have to even be short form video. It was just a way of setting up the psychology of attention and how people wanted to be engaged with in this particular format. So we tried these formulas on our next video, and that next video did 5 million views. And the video after that did 10 million views. And it's not to say that everything that we did was successful, but what it did do was provide us a really fantastic benchmark of knowing what wasn't going to work, for one, and then how to engineer content in such a way to give it its best shot. We live in Las Vegas, and so it's a little bit like, look, I can't tell you when the slot machine's going to hit, but I can tell you which machines have the best odds, and I can tell you which ones have the loosest slots, and I can tell you which ones went off recently, and we can use all this information to make educated guesses and informed actions. And that's what we did. And so we went from 9 months of getting 0 views, like literally maybe a couple hundred views over the course of all of our videos, to 1 billion organic views in the following 12 months. And, making viral content you're talking everything from pranks and DIY hacks and all sorts of great things. And we both come from very serious backgrounds. And we just saw a gap in the market for personal brands, entrepreneurs, companies, mission-driven messengers who have a message to get out and need to connect with their audience, and everyone really struggling to do that. And so we created Attentioneers to do just that, to help those personal brands and entrepreneurs grab reach and revenue through short form video strategies specifically.
Well, I love that story, and one thing I like about it is it kind of comes full circle, because you started by saying that you got into it by accident.
Yeah.
And then you'd said you'd mentioned later that the idea of that viral content comes out not by accident, but as an intentional means. So I wonder if your story of going from a psychology major trying to struggle to find like that normal path of going to be a professor and doing that didn't just intentionally end you up working on the psychology of attention.
Isn't it funny? And
That's
here
so
I
incredible.
am, essentially, teaching people how to get their message out there in such a way, engineering it in such a way that other people want to connect with them, which was what I loved to do as a psychology student, is find ways for people to connect with each other. And I loved teaching in that regard. So yes, it is amazing once you can look backwards and see how all the dots have connected. You can put it all together quite beautifully.
Yeah, well, I'd love to dig into that idea of how you grow that content, because not to brag, but my videos make 100 views or so at times, so they're pretty good.
Yes.
I mean, they're pretty strong. So
Love it.
I want to dig into a little bit more of your story, but before I do, what are some of those things that we're missing out on, that we're not doing to get that attention? What are we not focusing on, or what are we focusing on too much?
Great question. So I'll answer your second question first, which is, what are we focusing on too much? And the piece that I see people get tripped up on is that they try to copy what the big celebrity names in the space are doing. They're trying to be like the Gary V's of the world. They're trying to be like Mel Robbins, and we'll get on calls and they'll say, I just see them flipping on the camera and they're so natural and it's great. And it's like, yes, you're right. And they can get away with that because they already have the audience. They already have the brand recognition. Every person is being served between 6,000 to 10,000 ads every day. 20 million new videos are being posted to the internet every day. And some days it's 20 million great videos, or it could be a lot of great videos. And some days they're not so great videos. There's also a little bit of a roulette game over what type of content and the quality of content that you're going up against each day. So we can't compare ourselves or try to mimic those that already have an existing audience, that already have fans, because they're going to get a lot more grace in how they set up content and what they do in comparison to you. Gone are the days where we can expect that we're going to deserve attention. We have to earn it. And so we have to think about it in that way. You must earn your customers' attention. You have to think about your own behavior of when you're on your phone, when you're on your computer, or even on your television screen, right? How quickly you're cycling through to see if something catches your eye. And the more that you can start consuming like a creator and thinking about consumption through the lens of curiosity of, why did I stop on this video? What was it that made me want to go click on this profile? What's my intention with now going and looking at the rest of their reels? You're going to start to notice that a lot of the things that you likely do are also things that your target audience also does with their own behavior. So that's the first piece of advice, is let's not look at what the major creators are doing or the big names, because they already have a leg up that you don't have. The second thing I'd say with that is, when it comes to what makes a great video, there are 3 key components. So the first component is it has to grab attention in the first 2 seconds. It has to spark an emotion.
2 seconds, wow.
2 seconds, yeah.
That's just wild.
We'll come back to that. Yeah. So we have to grab attention, we have to spark an emotion, and we have to create a curiosity gap. So grabbing attention, our attention spans have declined 25% over the last 10 to 15 years. And again, the way that we've consumed content is so different than what we were doing 10 to 15 years ago. And even when you look at movies that are being made now and television series, the cuts, the way that we're immediately diving into the action, it's very different from movies even 10, 20 years ago, let alone from the 80s or 90s or before. So we have to know that someone is only going to give us those first 2 seconds, and grabbing that attention then just buys us the next 2 seconds. So there's a lot of intentionality that goes into setting this up. And there's a number of ways that we can grab attention through colors or pattern interrupts or questions. Weirdness is always going to win, or creating a really strong hook, something that they really care about. So when someone's scrolling, the first question that they're always asking is, what's going on here? The second question they're going to ask is, do I care? Mm-hmm. And we have to get them to care. We can't assume they're going to care. And what a lot of people do is they want to put the big thing, the big reveal at the end of a video. And it's the same with a speech. But if we don't lead with the best piece, if we don't lead with that attention-grabbing hook, they're never going to get to the end. It's just like why when we're talking about book titles and as a personal brand strategist, we're always saying that the title is so important. The purpose of a title is to get someone to buy the book. It's to get someone to watch the TED Talk. It's to get someone to watch your short form video. You need to open the email. Whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do, this applies beyond short form, just as the psychology of attention in general. And if you can't get them to take that action, then nothing else matters. So it's very important that you spend the time thinking about how are you grabbing attention.
Well, you had me at weirdness will win, so I know my angle. That's gold. I love that.
Yeah, it always does. People love to watch weird things, and you can never go wrong there. You can build a whole brand around it.
Awesome. And can you kind of get into that? So the first component was grab attention within the first 2 seconds. Second one was can you repeat that one again?
Yeah, spark emotion.
Spark emotion.
People don't make decisions based upon logic.
Yeah.
Right. We make decisions based upon our emotions. It's why people overpay for homes, and we buy cars that are outside of our budget, or we splurge on something. It's not a rational decision. We don't make those decisions rationally. So we have to tap into emotions. And further, when people get emotional, they get promotional. When somebody feels an emotion in your video, that's what gets them to share it with somebody else and says, oh my gosh, you have to watch this. Look at this cute little bunny rabbit and his deer friend. How cute is this? Or you have to hear this message. This is also the reason why fake news spreads 6 times faster than truthful news, because the media that's leaning into fake news is really tapping into and hitting on the nerve of the emotions, right? You don't have time to go and fact check something if you're too outraged. So there's a lot of different emotions that we can tap into on the positive and the negative spectrum, whether it's, love, joy, wonder, surprise, to fear, anger, sadness. But being again, intentionality over what we're trying to get someone to feel in the video, because that's going to help the video propagate.
That's interesting. And so I've heard before in a number of interviews that I've done that, we as humans have a negativity bias. So is it more powerful within that emotion, tapping into that emotion, are we more prone to see things that are negative, or is there a way that we can win with positivity? Anything like that?
We can win with positivity. Absolutely. The unfortunate thing of being human, and this goes back to the psychology of it all, is that our brains are wired to pay attention to threats and to try to seek out security. And we're looking for, what is going to solve the uncertainty in our life. And so we will automatically be more akin to pursuing a headline that says the top mistakes, or, if you do this, you will fail, or if, don't do this if you want your business to succeed. We always want to protect ourselves. We always want to be able to engage that survival mechanism. It's the lizard brain that you're tapping into. So yes, there is an easy way to utilize that and that negativity to get someone's attention, but it doesn't mean that the positivity doesn't win. And in fact, what you tend to see is the more emotional, the feel good. Those videos are the ones that can take off and get into the 10 plus millions because they're so moving. And it just depends on your audience too, and what you're talking about and what matters to them. And that's why it's also really important that we're not coming in just trying to copy what a big creator is doing, because they might not have the same audience that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a powerful point too. And it's counterintuitive because we see all these people that are doing stuff that are so successful, and we're just like, oh yeah, well, you know what, maybe it helps that I'm just walking outside or going for a walk and just talking to my phone and doing that, because Mel Robbins does that. And you're thinking, okay, but is that the right strategy? Because it's just, she's already made it. I like that approach. That's so I like that we need to look at that and rethink that. And then, so spark emotion. And then the third one, what was that?
Create a curiosity gap.
Create a curiosity gap. Okay.
In order for someone to stay on the ride, so we've got their attention, so they're hooked into the video. We've sparked an emotion. So now they're thinking about sharing it with somebody else. They're finding it to be relatable. So they're more invested in the content. The curiosity gap is what's going to keep them watching to the end. And that is a promise, a payoff, or something that you're leaving out, but you're telling them at the beginning that you're going to give them. And then you're walking them through to the end. So this could be the number one mistake that people make going into business, right? This could be the 3 things that you need to know about making great videos. It could be the number one mistake people make when they're trying to make their video content. And the answer would be they try to copy what all the big creators are doing, or what these celebrity thought leaders are doing. And it's just setting it up enough so that both the AI that's looking at the video and trying to get it to serve to the right people, and your audience and your target audience, who might not even know who you are, they know whether or not they're going to care about the answer. And so it makes it really easy for them to buy into, oh, I need to know what that answer is. I'm going to keep watching. But if we confuse them, if we don't make it clear, it doesn't have to be complicated, but it does need to be clear. Because if we don't tell them clearly what they're going to get out of the video, then they won't continue watching because they don't know what the payoff is for giving you that time.
Got it. So it starts really with just telling them that what they're going to get. This is 100%. What you're going to get, and that's helpful. So it's and you know, we have this. And this is this something that works on all platforms, or is it just specific to TikTok, or so it's everything? Huh? Okay.
It works on all platforms, and it actually works through all mediums of communication, not just short form video. This also applies to long form video. In long form video, you just get a little bit more grace period. You don't have to do things as tightly and engineer and construct it as quickly as you do with short form video. And in fact, applying these methodologies to short form will make you so much better at doing everything else. This also applies to your email newsletter. It applies to any of your funnels. It applies to your sales copy. It applies to any ads that you're running on Facebook or LinkedIn. It applies to your keynote. You know, you have to grab attention. You have to keep their attention. You have to spark an emotion, and you have to create a curiosity gap so they stay with you. Now, the friction for somebody getting up and leaving a keynote is a lot higher than someone just scrolling on their phone. Yeah. So there is that piece. But the good news is this can be applied not only across platforms. We're platform agnostic. We have clients have success across multiple platforms, from TikTok to Instagram to YouTube Shorts, wherever they want, Facebook Reels, wherever they want to post it, to then also taking these same methodologies and applying it to their podcast, or applying it to their newsletter or an article that they're writing, whichever makes sense for them.
That's incredible. I find that in you know, my own life, I have trouble being concise, as I'm demonstrating right now. so as a short term as a short form video person, I really struggle, and I know a lot of people do with that kind of thing. Plus, it is awkward to, you know, kind of like start like producing that kind of stuff. Is there anything that how can people rise above that fear of like getting in front of the camera, or, you know, improving their communication style? Any tips there that you have?
Totally. So you bring up a really great point, and we see this happen a lot where maybe someone comes through our half-day virtual boot camp and we give them all of our short-form secrets and they learn how to apply it, or they're in our group coaching, or maybe they're working with us one-on-one and we're getting them a year's worth of content in a day, and we're packaging it all up and doing it all for them and sending the content back to them. And then it comes time to post something and they don't do it. This happens all the time. And what I know to be predictable is whatever the insecurity is that you have is going to rise up. And so knowing ahead of time that this is going to happen, whether it's a fear of how you look on camera, a fear of how you sound, a fear of what other people are going to say, a fear of doing it wrong or putting yourself out there and no one watches the video, or a fear of the wrong video going viral. I don't know, we had a situation like that happen. So it's important for you to know yourself and to just be okay that that exists and that everyone's dealing with it on some level. And then we got to go back to why we're doing this to begin with and what we're trying to get out of it. And it's not necessarily about getting millions of views. Like, that's always nice, and it's a great confirmation that we have a great piece of content. But what is the end goal for doing the short form video? And really, this should be a question you're asking yourself with anything and any time you're putting into any endeavor in your business, right? Or in your life. What do I want to get out of this? How are we measuring success? And this is something that we ask our clients before we start working with them, because that will change how we set up the content, right? Because if they want to get more people to their email list versus selling one-on-one coaching or getting more keynotes or driving people to a podcast, it's going to look a little bit different. And then we've got to make sure that we're sticking to that as the goal versus allowing the way and the weather, fair weather friends come and go of what the comments look like, and remembering who we're trying to impact, right? And the reason that you feel so called to put out this podcast and to share your story is because you went through something where you wish that you had this person to guide you through. And there's somebody that's calling for you right now to do the same. And so it's a little bit of putting our ego aside and acknowledging it and say, yes, I see you, I hear you, and I'm going to do it anyway. And let's just go for it. And that's okay. And then there are some other things we can do as far as like, if you want to hone your skills, part of it is just practicing in public. Part of it is looking to other creators whose style that you like and putting on your experimental psychologist, data scientist hat. What are they doing in this that I like? Is it the way that they're carrying themselves? Is it the tonality that they have? When it comes to brevity, the best thing that I can recommend is, where do you want the video to end? Right? What is the main takeaway that you want them to have at the end of the day? Because then we can work backwards to set up what this looks like. And I mean, a lot of this for me has come from my years of writing and writing blogs and writing news articles and getting really good at those pithy headlines. But there's also so many tools that are now available today that you don't have to do that on your own. ChatGPT is a great example. It might not always spit out the best content, and you're not going to be like, great, copy, paste, and let me go from there. But it can definitely help to take the burden off of needing to make it all up on the spot by yourself. And you can use that as a starting place with which to mold and create something that feels more authentic to you.
I like that. And I'm glad you said that, because ChatGPT is very much at front and center within our world of content creation and all of that kind of stuff. And we think that everything that's speaking to us now is AI. In a lot of cases, when you read our emails, we're seeing that it is just AI. There's no humanity to it whatsoever. But the way that you frame that in terms of taking that content that you type into ChatGPT and it spits out some ideas or what have you, that you can mold into your own, that last part's really, really important. I feel like, to make it your own. And I also like how you said to work backward from where you want to be. So, so from where you want to end the video to where you want to be.
Sure.
And that's helpful. Can you expand on that a little bit on how to maybe frame that into how to do that, to take a concept and work backward? How do you get to the start from where you end?
Let's do a live coaching session here. So what would be one thing you would want someone to get out of a video that they were going to watch of yours?
Let's say how to turn fear into flow.
So what's the answer for that? What's the first step to turning fear into flow?
is to acknowledge, maybe name the fear that you have.
Okay, great. So the end of the video is going to be you giving them the answer that you have to name the fear. And so then we're going to back up and say, okay, what do most people do instead? So that's my question to you.
Yeah. So most people, they ruminate in the fear. They try to push it down. They push it away. They fight against it. They try to think that it's not there. They do something else. There's
Great.
my brevity coming into play.
I love it. No, this is it's perfect. You're doing great.
Right.
Okay. So what most people do is they try to avoid, they try to push the fear down. They don't acknowledge it. It's just easier. But then what ends up happening when they do that?
It just keeps getting bigger, because you can't fight against fear without it showing its face and wanting to be bigger. You can't win win the fight against fear.
Amazing. So this is how I would set, and this is the bad version, right? So just, we didn't plan this or talk about this ahead of time, by the way. So just on the fly, thinking about it, your hook might look something like, this is the number one thing blocking you from getting into flow. Or here is the biggest mistake that you're making that's keeping you from achieving your goals. Or if you're feeling fear, you need to do this one thing. So those are 3 different like broad scale hooks that I might try for a video like this. And by the way, there's no wrong answer, and you should shoot the video all 3 different ways, because you might hit a different audience. It might work better with one than the other. There's no reason to limit a singular idea or a singular answer to one video. So we'll take one of those as the hooks. Then we're going to set up the context, which is when most people feel fear about X, Y, or Z. This is what they do. They push it down. They avoid. They don't want to think about it. They pretend it's not there. They think that if they don't put their eyes on it and they put the energy in pushing it down, that eventually it'll go away. But here's what happens instead. It gets bigger. It doesn't go away. And it starts to take up more mental real estate and more mental noise. And you're speaking to the pain of what your target audience has, yada, yada, yada. So here's what you need to do instead. Just name it. And then why does that matter? By naming the fear, you actually take back your power, and you make it smaller, you make it digestible, and suddenly it doesn't seem that bad. And now you can actually move forward and do the thing that you want to do. Follow me for more.
Wow. I love that. That's, I mean, just on the fly, that's just so incredible just to see how that works, because I'm like sitting here just going, wow, wait, hang on. That actually works. We thought of it on the fly. That's amazing. So
then I think about like with the formula of grabbing attention, sparking emotion, and creating curiosity gap. So the way that we set that up in one of those 3 ways, right? That's addressing the curiosity gap issue, because whether it's the number one mistake you're making, the number one thing you need to do, or like the top mistake, that's the gap there that you're going to fill by answering the question. We're sparking emotion by speaking to the pain of what they're going through and getting them to be like, oh my gosh, like I do feel that way. And this is what's happening. And then for grabbing attention, there's a lot of different ways that could look, right? Like one of them could be, how could I visually show me trying to stuff something down and then it popping back up? Like the first thing that comes to mind is those, the peanut like jars that you open up and it pops out with all the stringy things, and like it could
like
be
the
like
worm cans,
like you're trying to push these. It's like, here's your fear, and you're trying to push the worms into the can, and then here's what happens, right? Like what kind of visual could you use to show this while you're talking about it? It could be something else. Or it could just be you talking straight to camera, but we're really leaning into that hook as being what's going to carry it. So this is how we engineer videos, and this is how we engineer content is, okay, what do they really need to know? And then why is this actually a problem for people? And then how can we get into it? There's something that somebody wants to know. And you can, even just from this example, like you're not dancing, you're not doing trending audio, you're not pointing around on screen. Like it's nothing that's not authentic to who you are. And then it's how do you deliver it in your voice that speaks to your audience?
Yeah. Wow. So first off, I mean, you just gave you just dumped a ton of value on people right there. That was incredible to me, because now it's like, that was like a live course on any problem that anybody has, or isn't anybody who's trying to solve and creating this short form content now has a formula for how to produce that short form content. Very simple strategies for it. But not only that, but but your company, Attentioneers, not only gives boot camps on how to expand on that and give better details within like single day boot camps and things like that, but also one-on-one coaching where you produce 52 videos that people can post weekly.
Yeah, so it's our belief that the minimum effective dose of content, quality content, is one video a week, and we are big believers in quality over quantity. We have people that will, call us or we'll talk to and say, like, yeah, but so and so is putting up 14 videos a day, or says that you have to do 700 videos before a video hits. And I'm like, gosh, if you're doing 700 videos before something hits, First of all, I'd hope that something would hit by then. Now you're just playing the at-bats game, but you also don't know why something worked when it does do well. And so typically when clients come to this, that's the situation. They have a lot of videos with low views and maybe one that's spiked, but they don't understand why that one spiked, and they keep trying to recreate it and it's not working. And it's because we're not playing this game of engineering. We're not intentionally constructing the content. So yeah, when we work with clients, we help to map out soup to nuts. Here's all of your video scripts. So we spend time learning about your brand, what your values are, your voice, your target audience, what the goal is, where we're trying to go. And then we craft all that for you. And we take those video prompts, we fly to you, you come to us, and we help you shoot all the content. Our team edits it and gives it back to you with, fully constructed with your descriptions, your hashtags, any recommended music, your edits, and then your team just gets to post it and go. So you can either take with us at least, you can either take the done for you model, or we can help to hold your hand and teach you our process and what got us our 1 billion+ views, and be able to do it yourself if you're more on the building side of things of your business.
I love that. And we will post the link to this, but you offer a free call to anybody at Strategy Call to go down that path.
Yeah.
Right?
We love to talk to creators and business owners and personal brands about where they are in their content creation journey and give you some specific advice specific to your profiles, as well as how to do this yourself.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, and so we will post that in the show notes, but it's attentioneers./free call, right? Is that
attentioneers.com/free call? Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll post that in the show notes, and I'd kind of like to know your perspective too on. So well, backtracking to what you just said about posting every day versus once a week, say, is there any harm in posting every day? Like what is the harm to doing that? Or are we shooting ourselves in the foot by doing that?
Great question. It can be harmful to be posting not quality content every day. Because here's what's happening and this is why I have my TikTok audience, which has 850,000 plus followers right now. I haven't posted new content in a very long time. And that has been an intentional choice. One, because that hasn't been our focus. But two, I also know that if I post subpar videos, then the algorithm's going to limit the number of people that it exposes my videos to. And essentially, if you're posting every day just because you feel like you have to put something up and it's not great content and it's not getting the engagement that you want and it's not reaching the right audience, you're teaching the algorithm that you make bad videos. And so instead, we know that even just with a couple of really strong, like well-intentioned content, videos and creative, we can revive accounts very quickly. And so for us, it's more about how can you maintain, what is the level of consistency that also allows you to maintain quality? And if your quality is suffering, we want you to dial back on consistency, because that's much more important to us than anything else, which is, and we take kind of a different approach than most social media gurus who are about the frequency and using these trends and what have you. But we track a lot of the deep data insights as to the most viral videos in the world. And most of them don't have any trending audio. Most of them is just original sound. It's all original concepts. And this has been the truth for the past 4 years. So we know that to be true. And we would rather be seeding profiles with really strong content than have to be fighting ourselves with what we're doing by posting not so quality content.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Yeah. And I mean, probably a lifesaver to a lot of people who are just focused on, I got to get something out every day or twice a day or something like that. Yeah. That's helpful.
If you can post great quality content twice a day or 3 times a day or 4 times a day, then yay. And now you're able to, just hyper condense that timeline and be able to grow that. Or if you're on a streak, right, and you've got a lot of videos that are doing well, that's the time to post more great videos and keep that ball momentum rolling. And that's always super helpful. But don't just do it to do it. We're, again, for us, our word is all about intentionality, and we're here to stop the 20 million videos that are being subpar videos that are being posted every single day. I don't want to see them. You don't want to see them. You don't want to make them. So let's not spend anyone's time doing that.
Man, there's so much to know about this whole world that is just, we're just scratching the surface on it. If only there was a company that could help us with this. Oh, wait, there is. Attentioneers. But yeah. And so, I mean, in the world of social media, I mean, it seems like it's constantly transforming, like it's constantly transforming environment. How do you work within that frame of like, well, you know, there's this ethereal thing we call the algorithm that just kind of exists out there that supposedly changes everything. So how do we basically stay up to speed on that, if that makes sense? And yeah,
it's a great question. Yeah. The first thing being, Adobe actually released a study earlier this year saying that 80% of the time that we are on our cell phones and we're not calling or texting someone, which just think about how often you're calling or texting someone versus doing something else. 80% of the time we're doing something else on our phones. We are watching short form video. The players may change in the game, but I don't see the user behavior changing, at least not for the next 5 years. Gotcha. The way that we consume content is the way that we consume content. And Threads has unfortunately felt the pain of this by trying to go off of the complaints of what users are saying versus the behaviors of what users are actually doing. So the first piece being, we need to follow the user behavior and know that short form video, regardless of what platform it's on and who stays and who goes and what happens with all of that, that is the way that people are choosing to get their content right now. And so everything else, in our opinion, is just additional support. But if you're struggling with, gosh, I don't know whether to post carousels or photos or reels or long form videos or, pull out quotes or whatever the thing, or my newsletter, this is it. This is the way to connect in with people. This is what they're consuming. So start there. The next thing I'll say is that over the course of the 4 years that we've been doing this, the formula hasn't changed. The three main things that every great piece of content, not even just short form videos, but piece of content, whether it's, again, newsletter, funnel, keynote, has to have, that has never changed. And so, yeah, the algorithms, even the people that work at these platforms don't know what the algorithm is doing. Like they might say, hey, we want to get more people engaging. We might want to get more people doing this. And then the algorithm's going to go and figure out how to make that happen. But the algorithm changing is actually never a bad thing. And a lot of people view it that way because they only look at the hacks that they found to make content as a solution to their problem. And a lot of that's the back end stuff. It's the time of day to post, the amount of posts to make, the hashtags to use, the trending audio to use, the challenges to use, the filters to use. They're focusing so much on the post-production. And for us, the best videos are made before they're shot. We're all about pre-production. The best post-production strategy is a great pre-production strategy, and great videos are made before they're shot. And that hasn't changed.
So pre-production is greater than post-production, and focus on user behavior, not what the platforms are trying to drive.
You'll see that with Instagram had made a push earlier this year of like, we're going to bring back photo posts because people keep saying that's what they want. The caveat was, we're going to do that as long as that's what you guys show that you're engaging in. And I believe that one of the heads of Instagram recently said that they're now making a pushback for Reels because that's where people are spending their time. And same thing with where we see these other platforms. YouTube is now saying they're going all in on shorts and they're getting rid of their stories feature. Platforms are always going to experiment with these other features because they want to stay relevant, they want to stay alive, they want to breathe new lifeblood into their platform and see if something catches fire that maybe isn't the current way that they're thinking, which is smart because they want to stay relevant and they don't, rest in peace MySpace, they don't want to become MySpace. But at the end of the day, at least for right now, what we're seeing and has not changed is that short form video is the primary way that people want to communicate. And the more that companies and brands and personal brands adopt that behavior and adopt even just, again, looking at your own behavior and what you're consuming and why and where you are and thinking about your audience, which is probably a similar reflection for most of us to our age group and who we are, it's going to give you some strong indicators as to where you should spend your time.
Yeah, that's super. That's super helpful because I mean, it's counterintuitive, but that's all we hear about is just, how do we navigate the algorithm? How do we do this and all of that kind of stuff? But that is really helpful to know that we should just be focused on user behavior. And it's an interesting dynamic that people say that they want something that their behavior doesn't match, which is interesting and telling.
Humanity, isn't that right? I want 6-pack abs. I totally want 6-pack abs. My behavior doesn't always reflect that,
That's so true.
And that's just, we have to remember that we are fickle creatures. And, when we were in the viral content space, a lot of people would hate on our content. It wasn't the most highbrow content. We were trying to target the lowest common denominator in order to get the most views. We were trying to reach a very wide population for monetization and ad purposes, which is different than what we're doing now with more hyper curated content for specific audiences. But a lot of people would complain about the videos, but they would still watch them. Yeah. And they would still engage on them. So humans are fickle. And so it's more important, instead of thinking about what your preferences are, looking at the behaviors that you're actually doing and what others are actually doing. And that will help to guide the direction of how you should conduct your content.
So good. So good. I'd love to shift gears here because that just sparked my curiosity and we just went in a total great direction. And I loved what that, so much value, but I do want to shift gears into kind of your story because it's powerful. I mean, it's incredibly impressive the way, you kind of went from graduating from college, a psychology degree, and then pursuing this blogging career where right at that time, in 2008, that was kind of the thing. That was before we really got social media rolling, right? Can you talk about that switch and how you built momentum there, how you grew that from zero to something?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2010, and I think I started the blog in 2011. It was summer of 2011 when I started that. And at the time, I just went on WordPress because that was what worked, and I found a template, and I didn't even do much with it, and I just started posting content. And through that process, I'd always been a writer. I'd always written through school and before. And I think that's just something too of leaning into what do you naturally love to spend your time doing and where do you naturally like to communicate and how does that allow you to connect with others? And my writing was a way that I could naturally do that. And I think, I don't want to say I lucked out, but WordPress at the time was doing this thing where they would showcase every day or every week a couple of blogs or blog posts that they found super interesting. And I remember reading a couple of those and seeing those and being like, oh, interesting, this is what they're looking for. And so I started to think about how I could craft my titles of my blogs to mimic or match what WordPress was saying that it wanted to showcase with its readers in my field of travel and adventure. And so by doing that, I ended up getting featured numerous times on their WordPress blogs of the week or what have you, which dramatically grew my audience very, very quickly and allowed that engagement. And to this day, I still have readers that initially found me through that blog, the Nomad Grad at the time, which is what it was called. And they still are on the journey with me. And they've been with me through Miss Nevada. They've been with me through USA Today and brand strategy and living all over the world and trying to make a music career in Nashville to now running attentioneers and viral videos. And it's so beautiful when you're able to connect with somebody through your values and what matters to you. And I think that was something else that really spoke to people is at the time, at least for me and my generation, the American dream was no longer a guarantee. And I had done everything right. I had gone to school, I'd gotten the grades, I did the community service, I had done all the lab work and research, and I had done everything that I was told that if I did this, I would become successful. And then that didn't happen. And so the conversation that I had a lot with these readers was, what happens when what the guarantee was no longer is the guarantee? And then what does your American dream look like that's different than the one that we were sold? And having this conversation with readers all over the country and all over the world was really powerful. And then as I started traveling and nomadically living around the world, we started doing these nomad grad meetups where readers in different parts of the world would meet up and we'd all connect, and then they get to be friends with each other as well. So to me, when I think about like how that parallels to what I'm doing now, two major things stand out. One is that I had a very unique voice and I knew what I cared about in that content. And by sharing that, it was allowed other people that cared about those things and resonated with that voice to find me. And then looking at, and I guess kind of engineering looking at what was working for other writers and bloggers at the time and how they were able to get featured through WordPress, very similar to the For You page on TikTok or the Discovery page on Instagram. And seeing how I could apply that to my own content to make it stronger, to make it more of what somebody would care about reading. And the rest is history.
I love that. And that was one of those things. I mean, especially around that time where I was kind of coming up in my career, I was always reading travel blogs. I'm sure I came across yours at one time or another because that was just something I so desperately wanted to do.
Yeah.
And how did that lead into, because you became Miss Nevada, which I said that right. Yes. Good.
Yes,
Nevada.
Yeah. You did great. A+.
How did that transition happen? Because you mentioned a firework injury. You kind of glossed over that a little bit, but how did that lead into your journey into pageantry?
So I had just gotten back from living with the Firewalker clan in Fiji. I'd been out there with them for a month, and they are the tribe that claims to be the originator of the practice of walking on hot coals. And Tony Robbins actually learned firewalking from them. And it's a whole other story as to how I was invited out there. And it's not a place that you can go unless you have an invitation. And I just happened to, during my trip in Nicaragua, meeting a wonderful woman who was on that retreat with me. And unfortunately, she passed away. And her family invited me out to see them a year later. Anyway, the was a wild and crazy experience that would be its own podcast episode. And I had just come back from that whole experience, and I was having a hard time integrating back to life in the U.S. And it was 4th of July, 2012. And a friend of mine had invited me over to her friend's barbecue, her barbecue party. And it was just one of those days where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Couldn't find my keys, broke a glass, stepped on the glass, couldn't find the clothes I wanted to wear. I ended up, this sounds so silly, but I had to wear this like push-up bra that had all this padding, and I was so mad about it because I couldn't find the other bra I wanted to wear, but I wore this one, and I ended up being, thank God that I did, because when this firework accident happened and they lit off the firework and the fuse went up, nothing happened. Everyone got quiet. Mm-hmm. And the firework exploded, but not in a pretty way. Fuse traveled 30 feet, circled around, hit my sunglasses, and went down my shirt. So I ended up suffering 2nd and 3rd degree burns to my chest and my stomach. And that firework just ate away the entire bra. And so I'm very grateful that I wore that, because the damage would have been a lot worse had that not been the case. And we drove into ERs. Most of them are closed because it's 4th of July. And, doctors didn't know what my healing time would look like. The chest is the slowest healing part of the body. Fun fact. And I felt like I didn't know if I'd ever feel feminine or beautiful again. And so I'm healing, I'm in Vegas, and I feel a lot of shame and embarrassment, and I'm not telling anyone that this happened, even though in hindsight that feels really silly. So I'm still blogging about previous travels and not wanting to tell my readers that this was a situation. And then right around the new year, I just was so fed up with myself and feeling the way that I felt. And I think I got hired for a modeling gig, and it was like a low-cut dress, and I was feeling all good about myself. And then I saw my scars and I just broke down, and it's like, I'm done with this pity party. So how do I move on? And the one thing I could think of was let's put yourself on stage. Let's get really uncomfortable. Let's force someone to judge you. And then maybe this will no longer be something that holds you back. And it just so happened right before I left for Fiji, I had met a former Miss Nevada, and she had brought up the idea. She's like, I think you should compete. And I was like, no, I'm too smart for that. I'm not going to do that. I have ambitions. I'm an intelligent person. And that was really my own misconceptions and stereotypes about what it meant to be a beauty queen. And walking into the competition and meeting all these girls, gosh, they all had a reason for being there outside of wanting the title. You know, one of them had a brother who had been on drugs and become homeless. And so she was very passionate about working with the homeless population. Everybody had a story. Everyone had a reason for why they were using this as an opportunity to get their message and their story out there. And so I didn't think I was ever going to win. It was my first ever pageant. I had no experience whatsoever. And apparently my story and the way that I wanted to communicate my challenges and overcoming that to the world resonated with the judges. And I put together a map and plan of here's what my year would look like. And then we went running with that. So it was, and at the time I remember writing the blog post about the fact that I won, and I was terrified to do it because I didn't think that my audience was going to accept that this was a new part of my life, because I still hadn't accepted it. I thought that my identity was being a travel blogger. I've got a really good pattern of attaching my identity and my worth to my work versus allowing that just to be part of my story and of developing who I am. And my audience was amazing about it. And they were the ones to be like, oh, here she goes again on a different adventure. It's just a different kind of adventure than we're used to. And then funny enough, I went from travel blogging to working with USA Today. And I wish that I would have done a better job of keeping up my blogging audience and that ecosystem that I controlled over or had control over. But yeah, it's such a wild ride. And I think that the best thing that I could have done in that moment is just continue to say yes, and let's get uncomfortable, and let's just say yes to the next adventure and get uncomfortable. And it just kept forcing me to redefine how I looked at myself and how I defined success and what it meant to be Hilary and being in my human and experiencing life as it was. And so now it's interesting because even though, I'm CEO and co-founder of Attentioneers, I don't know what comes next. And I see what we're building here as part of, there's obviously have goals and visions and plans for what the company is and is going to continue to be, but I don't claim to have any authority over the direction of anything anymore. I've lived too many lives in this one life to believe that is my path. So I'm open to receive what the universe is here to give me and continue to compound all of my skills and my gifts for the next thing and to help people in the next way. And if this is the highest and best use of our time, we're here for it. And we love the work that we do for as long as we're here to do it.
That's such a beautiful story. And I'm so glad we were able to close with it because it just demonstrates this power of, embracing, something maybe life-changing, almost tragic that happens to you, but embracing it as a way to get uncomfortable and grow. And would you say that experience was something that led you to those future endeavors? I mean, not just to Miss Nevada, but to USA Today and to E! News, to all of these other great opportunities that you had.
Absolutely. What I've learned is that if I'm needed to change course, the universe will lovingly throw a wrecking ball on my path. And anytime where things anytime where my life implodes a little bit, I actually get excited now when this happens. And there have been times in the past few years where we've had major lows or major shift in business. And it's just been a beautiful time to say, okay, universe, like I hear you. What amazing thing are you going to bring into my life next? I can't wait to see what you're going to replace this with. Because it's always this or better. It's always this or better. There hasn't been a case where the situation I've ended up in has not been for my highest good or not been something that's led me to more joy or more fulfillment or more love or connection or success. And so just releasing that grip, that vice-like grip that I can sometimes have on my plans and allowing the wrecking balls aren't as loud as they used to be, I'd say. And it's not as devastating now, but I really love getting surprised by what life has to bring me and what shows up.
I love that. And We should all aspire to look forward to those, I guess, events of surprise and look forward to those events. But this hour just flew by, Hilary. I'm so glad that we could spend this time together. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights. And I would encourage anybody who's looking to improve their short form video content or has a personal brand or anything like that, to reach out to Hilary. Attentioneers.com/free call is your way to get a phone call and talk through that. And just look for her on social media. She's clearly got a great big following. So where can people find you in that regard?
Everywhere. I mean, the best place to find us is attentioneers.com and connect with us that way. But yeah, I am all the places. Hilary with 1 L, Billings. You will find me and we will be friends.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And everybody else out there, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure and subscribe, rate this show, and share it with a friend if you feel you got something from it. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.